and welcome to episode 8 of the SBK Saturday Selections. Off the back of another winning week. I didn't really participate in that, but we'll be over to my partner who did participate in a few moments at time. My name's Luke Elder, and the guy who did put up winners last week is Tom Collins. Tom, well done for carrying the team.
Yeah, cheers, Luke. Look, you didn't do too badly yourself. We both had the winner of the poker stakes over in America, which we're going to come to shortly. Your UK selection got chinned right on the wire. I thought Kim and Grace was going to win that race. Unfortunately, the line just came at the wrong time. Fortunately, Party Island got the job done on the all-weather. So we got 2 out of 3, very close to getting that treble up for the Saturday Night Selections viewers. Hopefully this week we will go 100%.
Yeah, I hadn't watched Kim and Grace live because I was traveling to another place of work, and I watched your selection when I got there. Then you text saying, "Oh, Kim and Grace should have won as well." I was like, "Oh, I need to watch this." And this was just after Party Island got the nod in the photo, and Kim and Grace went exactly the other way, and we just lost it. Was in front before and after, not on.
Swings and roundabouts, isn't it, in the racing game? Sometimes you win photos, sometimes you don't. Depends what. Normally, you'll run based on what we've seen in recent weeks with the UK selections. You'd be winning that photo, but it just changed last week for Kim and Grace.
Look how happy you are that you're 1-1 and mine didn't.
I am pretty ecstatic after a terrible Royal Ascot, I have to say.
Oh my! Right. We'll quickly touch on Royal Ascot. It was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't good from a personal perspective, albeit I somehow escaped alive. But from a US perspective, it was pretty bad. I do think Campanelle and Love Reigns ran very well. So we should say that. Wesley Ward did have 2 horses that performed on their merits, and Irad gave both of them, in my opinion, a decent ride. Winless, though. That's not what Wesley Ward would have wanted. Grand Motion Spenderella ran very well in the Coronation Stakes. I don't think it's going to put the US challengers off next year. Hopefully we get another barrage of stateside challengers coming across. Wesley Ward, Grand Motion, Christophe Clement. Hopefully Chad Brown will one day send a horse across because he's the perfect trainer for turf races. But it was winless for the US, and probably not as spectacular for us either.
No, not quite as spectacular. Our bowl prediction, albeit these were the ones we didn't exactly fancy per se, but there were 3 and 4 winners. But we kind of expected 1 at most, but everything went wrong. One thing I will say, I hope in the future this does lean towards American trainers using European riders at Royal Ascot, just because I think I said this in the Ascot video as well. I really don't think that the American style of riding suits European racing at full stop. And obviously the best placed American horse was ridden by William Buick in Spenderella.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've seen over in the US the fact that European riders can go over there and dominate, not only just at the Breeders' Cup or, when Charlie Appleby sends a horse stateside and Spencer rides or William Buick makes the trip, but also the likes of Flavien Prat, Florent Geroux, Julien Leparoux, all formerly ridden in France, and they've gone over to the US and dominated. So we've seen it, kind of the European style of jockeyship has been successful both over here, very successful over here, and over in the US. Hopefully Wesley does use a European jockey. I don't know who it will be, given that the fallout with Frankie Dettori this week and what's going on with him, but I imagine he'll be leaning that way rather than sticking with the likes of Irad.
Yeah, well, there were rumours that both him and Wesley Ward have fallen out as well. Whether there's any substance to that, I don't know, but at the moment in the news for the wrong reasons. But we'll talk about the right sort of things with the poker stakes last week. I don't want to pat too hard on our backs because Masen was 1 to 4 on the off. The morning line prices that we said last week were horrifically wrong, but Masen still had to get the job done, had the perfect setup, and that was that. He'll go on to bigger and better things now.
Yeah, he was 6 to 5 on the morning line. As I say, the normal morning line maker was on vacation last week, so we weren't going to expect necessarily an accurate price. We suggested around 4 to 6, 4 to 7, and that's the price, 4 to 6, that he opened over here. And anyone that took that, very well done. You got the value. Was sent off 1 to 4 or 2 to 9. Just dominated the race from the outset. He didn't go all to plan. They went slow early. He broke well and raced keenly up front. He would have preferred a faster gallop from the outset. And Flavien Prat actually had to really rein him back off heels at the start to make sure he'd get into a rhythm. But he was always in the perfect position, just on the shoulder of the leader, Wolfie's Diner Ghost. Kick clear, it turned into a sprint late on, hence why the front 4 were only separated by just over a length. But he won with authority. He was the best horse in the race, and as you've touched on, he'll definitely go on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, I touched on the race as a whole, but I don't think there's that much to really take forward out of it. But Masen, it was just a case of this was an anomaly of a horse that was probably too good for the grade, running in this, trying to get a bit of a confidence booster, and now he'll go on to probably grade 1 territory again.
Yeah, I think he's a grade one horse. So as I just said, he'll be seen to better effect when there's a faster gallop, and naturally that will come when he tackles bigger fields. Obviously, only the 5 runners in the poker stakes. I do think Chad Brown's other runner, Public Sector, ran an okay race. He was in the worst position early on. Tactically, you don't want to be nearly last when they're going to dawdle. And the fact that pace held up, likes the Wolfie's Dynaghost, as I say, who led, finished second, and he just was outclassed supposedly in this field, just shows that Public Sector was in a poor position. He did really well, actually, to challenge for second at the wire. I imagine he'll go on to graded stakes and potentially contest a finish. He's not as good as Masen, and there's no doubt about that. But I thought he ran well in his own right.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He'd be the only other one you can take out of the race, albeit we kind of alluded to that before. But the result of those in behind doesn't really reflect their abilities per se. We'll say. But Masen was very good. We'll potentially, hopefully, see him at Keeneland at the end of the year in the Breeders' Cup. He wouldn't be a front runner in the mile, but he could be a runner at the very least. So that was a quick look back on the poker stakes of last week, which went very well. We're hoping for more of the same this week, as we got the Mother Goose Stakes over again at Belmont. Is pretty much where we're focusing at the moment on Saturday night selections. We've got 5 horses going to post, so another smaller field, and we'll do our runner by runner analysis. And I will kick off with the 1 horse, that is Shahama. Flavian Pratt won our big race last week. He'll be on board at Shahama as well. A horse who obviously we know had some very good form over in Dubai, and that came over to Churchill Downs to run on the Kentucky Oaks, and was kind of a I'm not really sure what you're capable of, a horse, because Maidan form doesn't always travel elsewhere. Ran a really good race to finish 6th, though. That doesn't quite tell the whole story. Was completely hampered by Venti Valentine when turning for home, was cost about 2 or 3 lengths or so, and importantly at that time of the race, a lot of momentum. Ran on to finish 6th, though. I thought that was a very creditable effort, and I think is one of the more fancied runners in the morning line, Tom, but I think is definitely one of the more fancied runners in the actual race itself.
Yeah, she's definitely a player. Number 2, Venti Valentine, the aforementioned Venti Valentine. She's going to be 5-1 on the morning line. Probably go off a little bit bigger. She's the sole New York bred tackling open company. New York breds notoriously aren't as talented as the likes of, horses that are bred in Kentucky, etc. She's 3 from 6 in her career, but perhaps her best performance came when she finished 2nd in the Grade 2 Demoiselle last year. The horse that beat her on that occasion, Nest. Nest has subsequently finished runner-up in the Belmont Stakes. There's obviously a very talented filly just to match with the boys, just not good enough for our favourite Mo Donegal that day. Jorge Abreu's an interesting trainer. He targets his horses well. I like this spot for Venti Valentine, but I think she might struggle, as she did last time out in the Kentucky Oaks, as you mentioned. She did get checked herself, so you can put a line through the actual performance that day, but she wasn't good enough no matter what. I don't think she'll be good enough here either.
Yeah, I'd like to say that is 8 straight weeks now with a Mo Donegal mention, which we're doing well. We're doing well on that. The 3rd horse in the race is Midnight Stroll, who comes from a race that myself and Tom hate in the Black-Eyed Season, because we were both with Miss Yearwood, which things didn't really go correctly. Things didn't go terribly for Midnight Stroll that day, though. Had to be rushed up on the outside as they sort of came out the back straight, turn for home. That wasn't exactly ideal, but you would rather have done that than been right towards the back of the field like the horses like Miss Yearwood were. There wasn't really any sort of late rally from Midnight Stroll. So I do think it's more of a back number in this race. And also importantly, is bringing Tampa Bay form to New York. That's never form I'd really want to take elsewhere, even to Gulfstream just down, well, I say just down the road, the other side of the state, but within the same state. So Midnight Stroll's a back number for me.
Yeah, number 4, Gerrymander, has a better chance, in my opinion, than Midnight Stroll, but perhaps not a winning chance in this field. Trained by Chad Brown. Chad Brown famously won this race in 2019 with Dunbar Road, who was a more talented filly than Gerrymander. She's an intriguing runner. She cost $375,000. She finished 2nd in the Grade 1 Frisette last year, but she was a mile behind the eventual winner, Echo Zulu, that day. Obviously, Echo Zulu is a very talented horse, but she was just a back number. She finished 2nd, but look, she beat a pretty weak rest of the field in that race. I don't think you could say Grade 1 second, bona fide Grade 1 second. She kind of just was better than the rest and was miles away from winning. She bounced back to win the listed Tempted Stakes. It was a good performance. She made all. She has plenty of speed, but there's lots of speed in this race. And her last time out effort in the 8 Bells was pretty disappointing. She'll have to take a huge step forward to feature.
Yeah, one who won't have to take a huge step forward is the 5 horse here. That's Juju's Map, who might be a name that even the casual race goer that doesn't really pay attention to American racing might well know, because Juju's Map, but you go back a couple of starts ago, finished 2nd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies behind Echo Zulu, was well put in her place when 2nd that day, and it was a small field, so let's not get too carried away with things with that. But it was a really pleasing reintroduction to racing at Churchill Downs last time around. Again, that was in a lesser race than this. This is going to take a fair bit more winning, but Juju's Map very much is probably the classy horse in the race, especially as North American form would go. So Juju's Map likely the one to beat. This race will go one of two ways. Either they'll give Juju's Map a bit of a freebie on the front end, and me and Tom will be sat at home throwing things at the TV, or Juju's Map will take a lot of pace on the front end, which I think is more likely. And hopefully Shahama might well come through to pick things up. So that's the runner by runner analysis, and also a spoiler from myself, Tom, about who I like and also who you like. So we'll start with Shahama. We're doing all right with agreeing on American racing, to be fair. We've had 3 straight weeks of Mo Donegal, Masen, and now hopefully Shahama, who I do really like. If she's second in the betting in this, I think she's a very good bet.
Yeah, she's currently 9-5 on the morning line. Juju's Map's even money favourite, and I anticipate that kind of being around accurate. I think Juju's Map will probably go odds on 4-5, Shahama maybe 7-4, and then the rest, bigger prices. I think it's a match race, but as you've touched on, the whole complexion of this race depends on what happens at the start. If Juju's Map and Florence Giroux can get that easy lead, she's probably not going to be caught. She won the Grade 1 Alcibiades last year. She's a very talented filly. She's never finished out the first 2 and 5 starts, and you have to respect Juju's Map. I also don't mind the draw in gate 5 for speed horses. If you're on the outside, it's usually an advantage against other speeds, because obviously you can see where your rivals are. Whereas if you're on the inside, you could get cut across, end up in traffic, and then it could be game over. At least if Juju's Map can't get to the front, she can sit on the shoulder and potentially win that way. She probably has the best gate speed in the race. She probably has the best acceleration in the race. And I imagine Florence Giroux will do his best to get to the front. But the likes of Midnight Stroll, Gerrymander, I think they're all going to push forward. Venti Valentine definitely from the inside will try and take the rail and take this race out. And that could create a race where we're looking for the closer. And if those 4 line up out in front, or if they at least go for the front, this race is going to perfectly suit Shahama. I'm with you. I'm really confident that Shahama's going to run a good race. I don't think she beat much in Meydan, I have to say. I think that crop of fillies was pretty poor. And she was sent off really short prices, which kind of emulates that theory. But at the same time, she was so impressive. And you can only beat what you're up against. I love the fact that Todd Pletcher pitched her straight into Grade 1 company in the Kentucky Oaks on her first US start. I thought that was a sign of intent that he thinks this filly's really quite a bit of quality. And she ran well. Don't get me wrong. She was out the back. She didn't show the natural early pace of some of the others, but she finished that race really nicely. She broke a lot better than she did in Dubai. I think she's a horse to beat in here. And I know she's going to be second favourite to a Grade 1 winner, but Shahama's really the horse I want to be playing.
Yeah, I agree entirely. You're right to say I don't think she beat much over in Dubai. I don't think champion 3-year-old filly ever beats anything in Dubai. It's always a really weak crop. You normally have nice filly at the top. We had one, I can't remember what the name of it. It was a Doug O'Neill horse that was just beating everything about 3 or 4 years ago. I think went over to America and came up short. But I think Shahama's different. I think she is a very nice individual. Just look at the SPs that she went off in Dubai, and that will tell you. She went off 3s actually for debut. So well done Shahama on being value there. But then 10 to 11, 2 to 15, 1 to 9. That's kind of where the doubts come from last time around with the Kentucky Oaks. You just didn't know what you were dealing with Shahama. You thought she might be okay, but I think she proved to be a little bit above okay. She was 12 to 1 that day. She, as myself and Tom have both alluded to, hampered by Venti Valentine on the turn for home and had to pick things up again. And in a race like that, and especially on dirt as well, it's so hard to pick things back up after you have been that hampered, especially at that point in the race, because dirt is not the sort of surface where you've got push button acceleration. You have to wait for a little bit, get balanced, and then get going. But Shahama, I do think is very much a big player in this. As I said earlier on, Juju's Map, there's 2 ways of this. Either she'll get a very easy lead and we'll be cursing every other rider in the race, or Juju's Map will take a lot of heat. And in my opinion, she'll do very well to win on that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting first furlong. I think if you're watching this race, please do expect Shahama to be out the back and don't be like, oh, this horse has got no chance now, she's last. That's kind of how this race is going to pan out. There's no way that Shahama's going to sit first or second in this field. Juju's Map, if she goes out and leads and they go 24 and change through the first quarter, 48, then you're probably going to expect her to win. She's been running quicker than that through the half. 47 flat was last time out, and she ran a good race when she won. So I think she's a horse to beat, Juju's Map, but Shahama's definitely the value out of the 2. Also worth mentioning, trainer of Shahama, Todd Pletcher, has won this race 6 times, joint record alongside legendary trainer D. Wayne Lucas. This victory would take him to 7. He'd be the record setter, winner of the Mother Goose. And I think Shahama's been aimed at this race look, you wouldn't pitch a horse straight into the Kentucky Oaks on the back of 4 made and runs and expect her to win. That's just not how Todd Pletcher thinks about his horses. I think he's going to pitch her in here, expect her to get off the mark in the US, and then go on to Grade 1 company.
Yeah, I agree with that. Hopefully, Shahama can take that step forward as well, because she looked promising anyway in the Kentucky Oaks. 3 others in the race: Gerrymander, Midnight Stroll, Venti Valentine. Are any of them booked for anything more than third?
No, I think Gerrymander's an intriguing runner. I think she's not as good as Dunbar Road, who won this race in 2019, but she has talent. Midnight Stroll's not good enough, and I'll be surprised if Venti Valentine can mix it with these kind of horses. I think she's better suited to New York bred competition, but she's a very talented horse in her own right. And look, if she ends up getting the lead and Juju's Map sits on the shoulder, maybe she'll outrun her odds, but it's very difficult just on form alone to imagine those 3 competing with the likes of Shahama and Juju's Map.
Yeah, of those of the other 3, Gerrymander or Midnight Stroll, I think, will be third. It's just a case of which one doesn't get involved in the early lead. They're not good enough to win the race, in my opinion, especially Midnight Stroll. Midnight Stroll, in my opinion, has got no chance of winning this, but could easily be third. And I think that's the best that she's looking for. But look, we're both with Shahama in the Mother Goose, who we're hoping 2-1. That'll be all right.
I'd very much pick this one. Yeah. It'd be nice to also get 4 US winners in a row. I have to say, I'm going to lean on this bandwagon until we get a loser.
Yeah. Well done. We can hope anyway for the Mother Goose. Realistically, probably looking at about 6-4, to be honest, with Shahama. But as you well know, here on Saturday Night Selections, we also have a look at the UK racing of a Saturday evening. Tom, as the person who got the head bob last week, I'll let you go first.
Thank you. Yeah. I said last week I was really confident with Party Island. This week's selection isn't as confident, but I think the horse is going to run really well. And that horse is Higher Mate in the 7 o'clock at Doncaster, trained by Roy Bowering. Now, he's not known for doing really well with these unexposed lightly raced types, but he is 2 from 4 in the last 14 days, 50% strike rate. So his string's in good form. And Higher Mate is likely to be slightly underestimated in the market just based on his trainer. Obviously, Roy Bowering horses don't tend to be backed time and time again, whereas the favourite in this race is trained by Kevin Philippart de Foy, whose horses often are overbet. That horse does have a chance, but I prefer Higher Mate. Ran 3rd on debut at Southwell it was a terrible race, but at the same time, Higher Mate missed 10 lengths at the start and still finished 3rd. It was a highly promising effort, albeit against weak opposition. Next time up, finished 3rd at Doncaster, handled the track that day, which is a clear tick in the box, and showed great early speed, much more professionalism, broke on time, kicked clear, and only got beat by 2 horses. One, Lethal Nymph, who's now rated 87, and second was Rizk, who's now rated 102. The form's working out well. The 4th, Prodigious Blue, has won since as well. So look, that's a massive tick in the box of Higher Mate. You can mark him up for that effort, given it was just his 2nd run as well. Last time out, he finished 2nd, again led from the front, got chinned late by a horse called Hebrides. Hebrides is going to run at Chester on Saturday afternoon, off a mark of 89. He's won since as well. He's a much better horse than people maybe expected for William Haggis, and he's moving up the grade. So Higher Mate got very close, only got beat by a neck. Looks leniently treated off a mark of 76. I love this spot, and I think potentially underestimated in the market.
I'm jealous of Tom from last week, so I'm going to just throw loads of mud at the wall and hope that something sticks. But there are 3 that I do like in the evening, so I'll rattle through them. The first one is our old friend Bookmark, who managed to win for us 5 shows ago.
Something around that, yeah.
I think this was the first UK winner we had on the podcast, and then we had the double on the evening as well as Tom's went in. And then your beer let us down. That was good. But Bookmark was impressive enough that day. Ryder dropped his reins late on in the piece, and things didn't exactly go perfectly, but was a massive drifter just before the off. Went out to 4-1 from like 5-4, and you're thinking, oh goodness me, I've got this one horribly wrong. Still managed to win. Went to Chester last time around, and the race was over after about 3 strides. Completely missed the break, and that was that. It was a race that was dominated from the front as well. And just on a side note, if Bookmark runs at least well here, Rossioli runs on Sunday at Windsor. I think Rossioli would go close. They were the only 2 to make up any sort of ground into the race at all. So another one to keep on side, but I think Bookmark will take a lot of beating in a competitive race. It must be said. A horse I've been waiting for such a long time is New Year's Honours, who runs in a 7:45 at Lingfield, has been entered, I reckon, about 10 times in races, excuse me, and just not managed to run in any. Comes from the Emily Upjohn race at Sandown last time around, has got a mark officially of 67 I think that mark is so below what New Year's Honours can achieve. That race has worked out nicely from Sandown as well, and she was the one horse that I took out of that contest. It's making up a bit of ground, but there are quite a few winners that have come from it. Generally, I must say, further back in the field, the likes of Emotion went on to run in some good races. Time Lockers has managed to do it, and there are a few others as well. I think Tequila Mockingbird has run sort of nicely since that day. So New Year's Honours, I think, is a really good bet in the 7:45 at Lingfield. And then an hour later, I think Morani Carly is worth an each way shout from the Martin Smith yard. The yard are running a bit better now. They did have sort of a quiet month or so when nothing was really doing a great deal, but they had the likes of All About Alice run the other day. This lad, Morani Carly, ran a really good race as well at Lingfield just the other day with Liam Brown on board. But this is an interesting one as Kieran Fallon takes the ride, which no disrespect to Liam Brown, but you're getting a much more experienced jockey and a better jockey for my idea. I do think there's a lot of pace in the race. That might well help. It could just sort of hand the race to Morani Carly. I will give out a health warning. He can be a little bit of a monkey, so do watch out for that. But I think he's talented off this sort of mark. He won at Kempton a few starts ago, so I'll take Morani Carly. Just regarding the trainer form, he's also got Shabs that runs at Newmarket this evening, but Friday evening. Obviously, at the moment, than how Shabs ran. I think Shabs will run okay and is probably an each way shout, but hopefully that will be another boost to the Martin Smith form. So apologies for going on so long, but there are three that I do really like. Bookmark in the 6:30, New Year Honours in the 7:45. I'm going to make Tom back that one as well, and Morani Carly in the 8:45 at Lingfield. And Tom, your fancy was
Higher Mates in the 7 o'clock at Doncaster.
Did you like the wave then? It was really it was like a Forrest Gump style wave, that one. But we got 4 there and 5. I mean, you can make it a lucky 31, whatever you want to do.
I mean, last week we suggested maybe the treble and we were that close to winning it. So maybe
I get it. My horse lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly disappointing from you, to be fair. You let the side down there, but this week you've got 3 in the UK, and I'm sure you're going to get at least 1 or 2 winners on the board. Thanks, buddy.
you get 1 out of those 3. Maybe 1 will place. I don't know. If you do want help putting those bets on, and of course, don't forget that new SBK customers, by depositing £10, you will get £30 in free bets. That will help for our 5 selections this week. So deposit £10, get £30 in free bets here at SBK. That would cover almost-ish a £1 lucky 31. Or what's 26? That's Canadian, isn't it?
That is indeed, yeah.
Yeah, do that one. Whatever. It's all good. It's all good. But that concludes episode 8. Happy enough with the selections?
Yeah, happy enough. I'm really hopeful that this time next week we'll be coming back and celebrating Shahama winning the Mother Goose. Maybe I'll invest in another picture on the wall. But just to keep this US run going, we're in a nice spot at the moment. We're getting a few winners. So hopefully the readers are appreciating that. And please do whack a like and a comment. Subscribe to the service down below if you are appreciating these Saturday Night Selections pods.
As my partner Tom says, like a like down below for us. 5 stars on Apple, whatever you use to listen to this podcast. Please do rate us highly. It very much does help things out. But episode 8 is in the books for the SBK Saturday Night Selections. Thank you very much for listening. We will talk to you next week. Until then, have a very good week. Stay safe. Look after one another. Goodbye.